In my 5th year with James, he asked me to marry him in a really amazing way. But just the night before our wedding, I caught him pushing his foster sister against a wall, saying, "I'm with her just to keep her away from David." He looked at her and asked, "Do you really want to watch me marry someone else?" I wasn't about to be just a small part in their big love story. As I was getting ready to call off the wedding, someone grabbed my wrist. They leaned in close and whispered, "I'm planning to crash a wedding. Want to join?" The night before the wedding, I was at the hotel to drop off some things for the wedding games we had planned. The hotel elevator wasn't working, and James wasn't answering his phone. With no other choice, I took the stairs up to his floor. As soon as I stepped out of the stairwell, I saw James with a woman pinned against the wall. Our special ringtone was still playing from his phone, which he was holding up. I froze. James didn't notice me. He was holding the woman's wrist, looking really intense. "You said you wanted to see David, so I asked Emily to marry me to get the word out in the news. You said you liked him, so I went after Emily to keep her from David. But Sarah, do you really want me to marry someone else?" The woman struggled a bit, and I saw half of her face. My blood went cold. It was Sarah, James's foster sister. Sarah glanced in my direction, a small, knowing smile on her face. Then she looked back at James, her eyes red. Clinging to his shirt, she cried, "Brother, I know you're with Emily for me, but I don't want you to give up your happiness for me." "Brother, run away from the wedding," James snapped, kissing Sarah passionately. They stumbled into a room, holding onto each other. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I bent over, trying not to throw up. I met James 6 years ago. I was left alone at a bar, and someone had put something in my drink. When I was most helpless, James saved me. He got me to the hospital and stayed by my side all night. When I woke up, he calmly told me how dangerous the night had been. I only felt thankful towards him then. But from that day on, James slowly became a part of my life, always showing up by chance, and seeming to like the same things I did, even dressing the way I liked. His actions seemed planned, so I was careful. He was patient, trying to get me to like him for over a year. During that year, I stopped being so suspicious. After all, James was the oldest son of the rich and powerful James family, and he was definitely good looking. I didn't have anything special that he would be after, so I tried opening up to him, and our relationship became romantic. That was 5 years ago. 2 months ago, James proposed to me in a very fancy way. I heard he spent over half a year getting ready for it. I stood there staring blankly at the closed door, unable to connect the man who promised to love me forever with the one who had just kissed his foster sister. If I hadn't come tonight, they would likely have planned to make me look foolish after they were done. I stood up straight, wiped my tears, and headed for the wedding hall. Looking at a picture of James, once full of love for me, I took scissors and cut it into tiny pieces. Turning around, I saw the flowers James had picked himself. I pulled them off the decorations. James had already paid for all the wedding stuff, so I didn't feel guilty about anything. After half an hour of destroying things, I felt a bit better. I called a couple of guys to completely trash all the decorations before morning. As I left, a cold wind hit me, and I shivered. I stopped when a coat was gently put over my shoulders. I recognized the face and paused. It was David, the same guy James mentioned with Sarah. Seeing how messy I looked, David hesitated. "Aren't you getting married tomorrow? Why are you crying?" Before I could answer, he added, "Did that jerk make you upset?" Thinking about what I had just seen, my stomach felt sick. David noticed how I reacted and was about to go confront James. I grabbed his arm. "No need, the wedding's off." David stopped, looking at me confused. An awkward silence stretched between us. David and I had been neighbors growing up, but he moved abroad once James came into my life. I hadn't heard that he had come back, so I wondered where this rumor about me bothering David had started. After a while, David asked, "What happened?" It wasn't my fault, and James didn't deserve me protecting him. Plus, David was partly involved, so I told him everything. David paused. "What a mess. They drag other people into their problems. That's disgusting." I smiled slightly. Isn't that the truth? We're all just pieces in their dramatic love play. David looked at me intensely. After what felt like forever, he said, I'm planning to crash the wedding tomorrow. Want to join? He seemed tense, pressing his lips together, avoiding my gaze. Seeing I was unsure, he continued, Doesn't Sarah like me? Liked me enough to have James chase you to keep us apart? Imagine if I were your groom instead. Doesn't that sound interesting? I looked down, my mind racing. That sure sounds satisfying. But what then? What do I do next? Thinking about it, I shook my head. I'll just tell everyone the wedding's off. Thanks for the offer anyway, I said, turning to leave. David quickly blocked my way. He was so frantic, he started stuttering. Actually, I need a favor from you. It's just disgusting to be liked by someone like her. So, could you just act like you're helping me and get rid of her clinging to me? As for what happens next, we can wait until after the wedding to let everyone know we've parted ways. This way, they won't have it all easy. Plus, we solve the immediate problems. He finished quickly, watching my reaction carefully. What do you think? Sounds good. But I pointed toward the banquet hall. I've already had people tear down the wedding setup. By now, it should all be done. David smiled slightly. Easy peasy. Leave it to me. David made full use of his ability with money. By the next morning, the wedding setup was ready at another hotel. Our mutual friend of James and I was taken aback when they received the last-minute update about the location. When they saw David as the groom in the wedding photos at the entrance, they were even more confused. They sneaked into my dressing room while guests were distracted and asked what was going on. I looked at myself in the mirror and smiled. The groom's been swapped. Hearing this, they exchanged glances. After a while, a girl cautiously asked, "You finally figured it out?" I was slightly surprised. Someone nudged her arm, signaling her to stop talking. Ignoring it, she sighed in relief. Actually, when James proposed, I caught... Seeing my calm behavior, she gritted her teeth and told me everything. I saw James kissing Sarah, but it was too dark and I didn't have proof to tell you directly. I said nothing. It's gross. James promising me everything and sneaking around with Sarah. But besides feeling gross, there was nothing else. I gave her a reassuring smile. It's okay, don't worry about it. Finally feeling better, she began praising my makeup and dress. As we were talking more, David knocked gently. The ceremony's about to start, ready? Seeing him in his suit, a silence fell in the room. Soon, friends found reasons to leave for their seats. David's usual cold look disappeared. He stared at me through the mirror. I felt uncomfortable under his gaze and wiggled my fingers at him. How'd you find this ring on such short notice? Fits just right. He jolted at my question, quickly looking away, a bit awkward. Borrowed it from someone. I nodded, not asking more questions. The wedding went surprisingly smoothly. With David holding my hand the whole time, my nerves slowly settled. Until the ceremony ended and we were headed to the party afterward. Just outside the hotel, Martha's relatives were waiting outside the banquet hall. As soon as the door opened, Martha pointed at me, furious. We prepared for so long for this wedding, and you not only destroyed it, you even changed venues and swapped the groom last minute. David's eyebrows furrowed, about to speak, but I stopped him. I looked Martha in the eyes. Your son tricked me into marriage and then ran away with someone else. Why should I stay at the wedding place to be laughed at? This made the relatives whisper amongst themselves. Tricked into marriage? What does that mean? Running away? So it's James's fault. Yeah, if James wasn't in the wrong, why disappear on his big day? And do you notice someone's missing today? The relatives quickly looked around, figuring it out. Normally close Sarah, usually by Martha's side, was absent too. Listening to the murmurs, Martha's face went pale. Ran away? That's not what he told me. He said Sarah had a car accident, and he had to... She stopped herself. It was all clear now. James had run away, leaving the blame squarely on me to save face. David snorted. Car accident. Check hospital records then. And you, Martha? No one else could take her to the hospital? Martha slowly calmed down. She looked at me directly. Emily, is it true? She struggled to find words, finally closing her eyes before speaking. Did James really run away? I nodded. Yes, and Sarah's the reason he ran. Martha almost lost her balance. Getting back control after some time, she said, I was too impulsive. I apologize for that. David's expression was still unhappy, but he stayed silent. With things as they were, Martha left with her relatives. David and I were unaffected, and we moved on with friends to the next place. The lively mood lifted the sadness in my heart, and I joined in the fun. But after a few drinks, some friends got excited about seeing mine and David's marriage license. Someone mumbled, David, the Ice King? Let's see his face on a marriage certificate. Hardly said when another replied, Ice King? Didn't you see he hasn't stopped smiling at Emily all night? I couldn't help but glance over at David from afar. Sure enough, my eyes met his in the air. He looked like he was shocked, quickly looked away, and drank his drink in one go. Someone, encouraged by the alcohol, called him over, insisting on seeing the marriage certificate. David walked over and casually said, We didn't get the license yet. Seeing everyone's expressions turn weird, I quickly added, It's not the right date yet. We're having the wedding first and then getting the papers. Hearing me explain, they didn't ask more questions, just said we must post the certificate online when we get it. Things calmed down. David sat next to me, hands on his knees, a bit nervous as he spoke. What you just said, is it true? I hesitated. I think we should skip it, don't you? The wedding's already over. David lowered his eyelashes, keeping his feelings hidden. But they said they wanted to see our marriage certificate. What if we never get it? I stayed silent. Stalling wasn't going to work on them. As long as they didn't see the photos, they wouldn't let it go. Feeling my mood, David suggested, We could actually get the license. It'd make it more convincing. We can always switch it later once all this is over. Raising an eyebrow at him, But isn't this stuff already over? David looked a bit uneasy under my gaze. Nah, it isn't. He'll definitely be back causing trouble. He was still thinking of excuses, but I cut him off. Then let's get it. The next time I heard from James was after David and I got the license. I wasn't really interested in his business, but David had mentioned a thing or two. I heard that after Martha left the hotel that day, she couldn't get in touch with James or Sarah. After hearing what David and I said that day, she was furious and stopped their money. But what really happened, no one told James. Once his money was stopped, James and Sarah couldn't last long. James figured his running away from the wedding had me feeling bad, which is why Martha was so angry. Trying to calm his mom, he sent me an apology text. Emily, I'm sorry for hurting you. Seeing this message, I realized I forgot to block him. Before doing so, I replied, If you're sorry, go to hell. Then I blocked him without hesitation. Right after shutting off my phone, Martha texted. She said it was her fault that she raised him wrong, and it hurt me. So she demanded James win my forgiveness. She even hoped we could get back together. David glimpsed the message and rather meanly said, Marrying two people is illegal, you know? I nodded. Oh, I had figured out a while ago. He insisted on getting the license to cut the last tie to James getting back together with me, but honestly, he overestimated my feelings for James. I'm not a trash can for disgusting people. Thinking about it, I wrote a long message to Martha. Auntie, there's no chance for James and me. I'm married now, so let's not stay in touch. Once it's sent, I blocked her too. I wasn't blind to Martha's little plans. When she first confronted me at the hotel, she already knew it was James who left the wedding, but she didn't think it was a big deal. What angered her more was me quickly finding a new groom. But when she found out James left because of Sarah, things changed. She needed me to get back with James to cover up the scandal. She even put her pride aside for it. Seeing all I'd done, David smiled slightly but tried to hide it when I looked at him. You're smart, figured out her plan. I frowned. Try again with the compliment. David cleared his throat. You're really not dumb. I turned away without even a glance. Move your stuff to the guest room. David seemed confused. Why? I smiled. Because I don't want to see you. 2 days later, I got a message from my best friend, Jessica. She seemed pretty excited, sending several long voice messages. Once her messages slowed down, I started listening to the first one. Emily, you wouldn't believe how awesome that was. James must have thought you were at my place and came knocking, asking where you were. I straight up told him you're married. Guess he didn't believe me, but I gave him a good scolding. Finally chased him out with a broom. Remembering her past brave actions, I couldn't help but chuckle. I trust your fighting skills. She sent another voice message. Heh heh, just watch out. If he shows up at your place, make sure David steps in to kick him out. Don't get hurt. Feeling warm inside, I replied with a hug emoji. After checking with who knows how many people, James showed up at my door. He instinctively tried to unlock the door with his fingerprint, but couldn't. He tried multiple times until the door lock started making a loud noise, then stopped and started knocking. But after a long while, nobody answered. James wasn't used to this. He used to just come over and I would go downstairs to meet him. Half an hour later, having lost all patience, he started pounding on the door, furious. Emily! Emily! I could faintly hear Sarah trying to calm him down. Bro, be careful. Watch your hand. And David came out of the shower and walked straight to the door to open it. He looked James up and down and asked, "What do you want with my wife?" James and Sarah were both stunned. A minute later, Sarah let out an excited scream and rushed toward him. Brother, you're back! David stepped back to avoid her, looking completely disgusted. I don't have a sister, don't call me that. Sarah was momentarily awkward. Before she could say anything, David asked again, "Why are you looking for my wife?" James finally understood. He couldn't believe it and spoke up. Emily really got married? To you? Sarah's smile froze. She kept denying, "No way, absolutely not. How could you marry Emily?" She looked at David, seeking confirmation. Brother, are you joking? James refused to believe it. He pushed past David, trying to get inside to find me. But David didn't move an inch, and James instead stumbled back. Emily couldn't have married you. That's impossible. David was done talking. He just pulled out 2 bright red marriage certificates from his pocket. To prevent James from grabbing them, he even opened them. See clearly? Emily, my wife, legally. Sarah stared hard at those 2 marriage certificates, screaming hysterically. How could you marry Emily? How dare you? James frowned slightly and scolded her softly. Sarah. Sarah acted like she couldn't hear him, repeating herself over and over. James snapped back and tried to rush in again. I don't believe this. Let me see Emily. Let me see her. I feared David might struggle handling them alone, so I wanted to check the situation. But as soon as I stepped out of the room, I saw David lift his long leg and kick James quite far back. He then swiftly shut the door. I was dumbfounded. Just like that. David turned and saw me, instinctively shoving the marriage certificates back into his pocket. I frowned. Didn't I put those away? Why are you carrying them with you? David avoided eye contact. Your friend messaged me to protect you. I figured he might come by. His voice got lower. Isn't this more effective than arguing with him? James seemed to have heard my voice and started pounding on the door. Emily, did you marry David just to make me regret it? I rolled my eyes and ignored him. James soon had no time to question me further, because even through the door, I heard Sarah yelling at him. Didn't you say they'd never cross paths? Why are they married? It's all your fault, you worthless fool. James seemed embarrassed, comforting and dragging Sarah away forcefully. David and I moved away from the monitor. David's expression was quite hard to describe. She actually has a crush on me. That's terrifying. I nodded in agreement. Then David changed the subject. Good thing you saved me. If you hadn't agreed to marry me, I'd be haunted by that nutcase. I raised an eyebrow. So how are you going to thank me? David peeked out the door to make sure they were gone, then undid the first button of his shirt. If you don't mind, I could. He didn't finish those 4 words, but I instantly got it. Blushing, I grabbed a nearby pillow and threw it at him. David! David dodged slightly to avoid my attack. I glared at him and turned back to my study to continue working. David soon followed me in. He didn't say anything, just watched me quietly. It wasn't until I saved my work and turned off the computer that he spoke. I think those 2 might come back. Should we go on a honeymoon getaway? It'd be a good way to avoid them. I nodded in agreement. Avoidance really was the best strategy. Facing off with two crazy people head on was a stupid thing to do. David and I quickly agreed and booked a flight for the evening. By the time the monitor sent another alert, David and I had already landed in the neighboring state. The first thing we did upon landing was head to a famous local escape room. I'd seen countless great reviews about it online, but had never gone. Only because Sarah claimed she was scared and James took it off our schedule. I shook my head to get rid of thoughts of those annoying people, focusing on the puzzles. The room wasn't too difficult, so David and I didn't spend much time there. Everything was going smoothly until an actor suddenly jumped out from a side room as we were about to leave. Startled, I screamed and buried my head in David's chest. David, caught off guard, took a step back and bumped against a sharp decoration behind him. He let out a low hiss, yet he still held me tightly with his other hand. My heart was racing, but I eventually calmed down. As we stepped out into the bright light outside the escape room, I noticed a small bloodstain on David's back. I gently tugged his hand. "David, you're hurt." David took my hand in his, smiling. "It's not a big deal. We just need some ointment for it." I quickly searched on my phone, then dragged David into the nearest pharmacy. As soon as we got back to the hotel, I insisted he take off his shirt. Unexpectedly, David's ears turned red. "I can handle it myself." I nodded, handing over the ointment and cotton balls. "Sure, I'd love to see you do it." The spot where he was injured was impossible for him to reach on his own. David stubbornly tried multiple times, but never quite succeeded. The medicine didn't even go on correctly, not to mention it hurt a bit at the wound. Watching him closely, I caught his eyes shifting, and suddenly he let out a dramatic "ouch" sound. I grabbed the medicine with a bit of attitude and helped to put it on him. David's quite the clever one. Not only did he make delicate grunts of pain throughout my bandaging, but he let out all these little pained gasps. At first, I didn't think much of it and just instinctively blew on it to ease the sting. When he did it again and again, I got wise. I purposely poked him where there was no injury. Sure enough, David yelped. I neatly gathered the cotton balls and ointment and fixed him with a look. "David." He didn't seem to notice anything wrong. "Yeah?" I poked him harder in the back. "You're yelling in pain from a spot that's not even hurt." David's face froze, and he answered honestly, "I forgot." He sneaked a glance at me carefully. "You seemed so worried. I thought it was pretty serious." He was trying to play the injury angle for some sympathy. Turns out he was barely hurt at all. I laughed silently, not responding. David must have thought I was angry or something, so he hurried to explain. "It wasn't on purpose when I bumped into it. He wasn't wearing a shirt, and when he turned like that, his abs were right there in my view." For a moment, I couldn't look away. David caught on fast. The sympathy act wasn't working on me much, but showing off his looks might. So he didn't show any change on his face, but from that point on, he kept finding reasons to show off. "Oops, forgot my towel after the shower." Or suddenly changing clothes right in front of me. By day 3 of this routine, I couldn't stand it anymore and tackled him. David took advantage and teased. Close to my ear, he whispered as I was drifting off, "If I knew you were into this, I would have tried seducing you 5 years ago." By the time he said that, I was too sleepy to really understand it. On the 7th day of my honeymoon with David, James called again. This time, he was cautious. Somebody else spoke first, and only after my response did he take the phone. He even tried changing his voice so I wouldn't recognize it. He started quickly, "Emily, I realized I was wrong. I shouldn't have left for Sarah, and I shouldn't have hurt you for her." "Emily," I cut him off. "I saw and heard you two kissing right outside your door that day." His excuses stopped short. Not waiting for more, I hung up and blocked the new number too. David frowned. He's still not giving up? I shrugged. Maybe he's regretting it, but why should I care if he regrets it? That night, coming back from a walk with David, someone blocked our path. It was Sarah. Seeing our clasped hands, she looked furious. "Let go of him! Let go!" David slightly frowned and instinctively put himself between me and her. This only made Sarah more angry. Pointing at me, she shouted, "Emily, my brother saved you back then. How can you just leave him?" David and I just kept backing away without much fuss. We were trying to make a run for the room while she was yelling. But every step we took back, she moved forward. Eventually, she reached out to grab David's hand. David, don't stay with Emily. She was drugged once, and my brother is the one who saved her. I laughed outright. So? I owe him my life, and what, marry him? Even after you two kiss in front of me, I'm supposed to cheer for that? What era does she think we're living in? Sarah seemed hurt where it mattered, shaking her head. It's not like that, David. Someone like James isn't my type. Just then, James's voice came from behind. Sarah! He looked at her with so much disappointment. Sarah flinched, but seeing us with David quickly became stiff again. I really don't care about you. If I didn't need you to get rid of Emily, I wouldn't be hanging around you all day. You're useless. James, I gave you so many good ideas, and you still couldn't pull it off. Watching them get married, James, I hate you. James's face turned icy. Right in front of both David and me, they started turning on each other. James walked up to her and grabbed her neck, teeth gritted. You like David so much, why didn't you tell him you framed it? That you drugged Emily and had me rescue her? Seeing David's growing dislike, Sarah rushed. No, David, he's lying. David jerked away from her. You and I have nothing to do with each other. Don't call me that. It's disgusting. James looked at us, then back at Sarah, unable to believe. He's not really your boyfriend? You tricked me? Sarah avoided looking at him, not daring to face James. At this point, what didn't James understand? He shoved Sarah aside, then tried to grab my hand. Emily, she deceived me. She told me David was her boyfriend, and you were desperately trying to take him away. That's why I got close to you. That's why I ran away from the wedding. Emily, I was just blinded. Can you forgive me, please? David kicked him right in the chest. So you drugged my wife and dared to pretend to be me? I looked up sharply at David. James stared at David in shock. It was you? I finally understood everything. David was the one who saved me back then. But James took on his identity and, because of Sarah, used it as a reason to get close to me. Everything started with Sarah's lies. I took a deep breath and turned off the recording. David, call the police. David nodded and dialed the number. Sarah rushed forward, trying to snatch the phone away. You can't call the police, you can't. James grabbed her, grinning like someone crazy. Scared now? If Emily won't forgive me, then you won't have a good time either. While they were tangled up, David finished the call. Sarah tried to run but couldn't get away. In desperation, she picked up a nearby brick and smashed it hard over James's head. While hitting him, she kept muttering, It's all because you're stupid. You believe whatever I say. If you promise to help me, you should see it through. Afraid she'd turn on me next, David took advantage and pinned her hands behind her back. The sound of sirens was approaching fast. Sarah pointed at James on the ground. It was him. I did nothing. Almost at the same time, David and I pulled out our phones. We've got recordings. She admitted it herself. Sarah's face turned visibly pale. By the time we got back to the hotel, it was late at night. I finally asked the question that had been bothering me. If you were the one back then, why didn't you tell me? David sighed, looking slightly hurt. After I dropped you at the hospital, my mom got seriously ill. You seemed safe for the moment, so I went home to check on her. When I saw you again later, you were following happily after James. I didn't know it was all his and Sarah's doing. Seeing you so in love with him, I left the country to get over it. Then Tom told me something was off between James and Sarah, so I rushed back and saw you crashing the wedding. Tom was the one who saw those two kissing. I asked, What's the deal with you and Sarah anyway? I've always thought she seemed a bit crazy, claiming I was constantly bothering David and ruining their relationship. David had a pained expression. It was one year during James's birthday. She seemed to like me right away. Since then, she was all over me. He left the country partly because seeing me with James was too much, and also to get away from Sarah clinging to him. I snuggled into his arms. No wonder when we finally met again, you immediately said you wanted to crash my wedding. So you've been planning this for a while. David huffed, proud. I was ready to quietly wish you well, but That jerk did it to himself. He leaned down, kissing me. But we were meant to be a pair. We recorded her at the same time without even planning it. From the moment James appeared, I felt something was wrong, so I started recording on my phone. Didn't think it would actually help, but those two just kept confessing. By the end, they'd completely sold each other out. With these recordings, they won't be out anytime soon. Plus, David and I heard later that Sarah hit James pretty hard. Martha, seeing the mess, decided enough was enough. She had taken Sarah in out of kindness, and Sarah not only used her son, but ruined their family name. In the end, she even turned on him, hitting James like that. Sarah thought acting crazy could save her. Martha quickly cut ties, publicly said she was no longer her daughter, and made it clear she'd never get back together with her. She also used her family's influence. Safe to say, Sarah's life won't be pleasant. Seeing David being smug, I remembered some of those moments he played hard to get. I felt like teasing him. I pulled away slightly, pretending to take off my ring. By the way, you said you borrowed this ring from someone else. Better give it back. Barely getting the ring halfway off, David reached out and pushed it back on. He grit his teeth, looking at me. Didn't you notice our initials engraved inside? And who else could I borrow a ring from that fits so well? I played dumb. You said it yourself. Oh, and you also said after everything's settled, Div. Before I could finish, David shut me up with a kiss. He didn't let go until I was weak in the knees. You believe whatever I say? Then I say tonight. His voice dropped for the last few words, and I pushed him away, heading for the door, denied. David pulled me back by the waist. Didn't catch that. Eventually, I didn't even have the strength to playfully bite him. I swear, starting tomorrow, David will sleep in a separate room. But before I could even make that rule, David made me realize actions speak louder than words. You just can't say certain things lightly.